Champions never make the same mistake twice. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Episode 45 of Cutoffs and Coffee. Your host here is always James and CT, and also our special co-host today, Coach Dale Rodick, our Director of Football Operations at T3 Performance. That quote comes from our guest today, Coach Wyatt Griffith. This was actually his father who told him this, and he said he had taken this and it's helped him have success all the way from when he was young, growing up, playing football, getting into professional football, and now into training professional football players, something that he always keeps in mind. So wanted to throw that quote out there, something to meditate on your free time. Anyway, Coach Griffith is the owner of G6 Performance Training, and he is also the trainer to, like we mentioned, T.O., Terrell Owens, Sammy, Watkins, and plenty of other NFL wide receivers. We take a deep dive into what it takes to train an elite athlete, and even what you can do as a coach to take an athlete who's not a great receiver and help turn him into a great receiver. So check this podcast out if you care at all about football training, about training youth athletes, or about what it takes to become an elite wide receiver.
And today's episode is brought to you by training at T3 Performance over the summer. There is nothing like it. When we open the gym doors up, we can go out in the sand pits, run around. We get the whole gym, right? We don't have to worry about the soccer teams, right? All the turf is ours for the summer. So come on in, all right, get some work in. If you're a football player, you got to see Dale for his horsepower groups. If you play other sports, I'm sure we got a class for you. I'm seeing a lot of baseball players back in after their awesome summer or spring ball seasons. So we got everything rolling. Come see us at T3 Performance. The doors are open. The sleeves are off. All right. And we're sneaking extra arm pumps in every workout that we can. I'm kind of kidding about that, but come and find out.
Well, it looks like Coach Dale, if you're watching the YouTube series, that Coach Dale has been sneaking those extra pumps in because he's got the sleeves off, ready to rock for this episode 45 of Cutoffs and Coffee. If you like what we're doing here, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Share, reach out to us. Let us know who you want to have on the podcast. We will do our best to have them on and have a great conversation with them. Anyways, without further ado, enjoy episode 45 with Coach Wyatt Griffith. Coach Wyatt Griffith, what's going on, man? Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm good, bro. I'm good, man. I'm good to finally get on here, bro, and talk with you guys.
Yeah, man. We were just talking off air. We got a decent amount of connections on here, just these four squares. If you're watching the YouTube version, you see Dale and Coach. They both played college together at Lake Erie. You got James and Coach, who both OWU grads, and then we've got yours truly and Coach, who we both played professionally in the Arena Football League. So how about that, man? It's funny that it kind of took this much time for all of us to link up, but I'm glad we could finally do it. This is our third ever quadcast, so we got four guys on here to talk football and talk sports. And we're really looking forward to it, man. So appreciate you coming on and making the time for us.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you guys having me. I'm excited to talk. Excited to get into it too. It's funny, bro, because Albany, around the time that the AFL folded, Albany was getting ready to have me fly out and come up. And literally 2 days later, I got a call from my agent. They're like, "Hey, the AFL just folded."
Yeah,
and I was
painful.
Like,
that small world, bro. And I can't remember that we had somebody else on who was in a similar situation, just through the Arena Leagues. Maybe it was Corey Morrow. Like, if it were, 3 or 4 days later, there would have been like three of us on here who would have linked up and gotten to know each other even before all this. So it's wild, man. The world works in mysterious ways. Why don't you tell us, just, us as hosts, and the listeners who are listening right now, tell us something about you before we dive into your story. Tell us something about you that we can't find from a Google or an Instagram search.
Holy shit. Do I even want to do that? My God, bro. So I'm the tactical conditioning coordinator for the Lee County Sheriff Office. So basically I train special operations units, SWAT, K9, deputy, even civilian life, and it outreaches to the VA, where I will take like people from the veterans transferring back from military life to civilian life. I'm cultivating right now, and I'm actually collecting case studies on combat operatives out in the field. So probably wouldn't be able to find that on the internet, but that's something that I'm doing right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm excited to hear how you got into that. And again, second question we like to kick this thing off with is, can you remember the last skill that you taught yourself or something that you're working on right now?
Last skill that I taught myself. Yeah, honestly, I think the last skill that I taught myself, I was actually down at the range and I was learning a new tactical maneuver on basically entering and breaching homes. Just understanding areas, placement, where and when to have your sidearm, like most tactically sound areas on where you're at, from a safe point to a target point. Probably saying a lot of verbiage you don't quite understand, but that would be the newest skill set that I just recently acquired. Wouldn't even say acquired, still learning. So,
James, you're a bit familiar with that, right?
Yeah.
I know when we talked to John Breen about it, you had mentioned it a little bit.
Yeah, I've worked with John a couple times on just some safety, and then also gone to the range with him a couple times. John is one of our former Cutoffs and Coffee guests. He heads up the tactical training for the FBI in the Cleveland organization. And now this episode's probably going to get flagged and it's going to be shadow banned because we mentioned that. But so sorry, John. But no, it was definitely out of my comfort zone, hearing an expert in the field. So, I'm sure that helps you with, your training with them, kind of understanding a little bit more of their skill set, what they need.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've grown up in a military and police family. So being tactically sound is always something I've been familiar with and being around. But now having this role where I am doing things that really target and focus in on combat operatives, it's only necessary that I am sound and efficient in this field as well. You know what I mean? I am not a police officer. I am not a ranger. I am not any of these guys that are out in the field doing hand-to-hand combats or in these situations, but I need to be able to understand them and I need to be able to coach them on how to be as efficient as possible when encountering these situations. So,
bro, that's awesome. That sounds like quite the experience. Why don't you tell us your story, man? Tell us your story. Tell us how you got to where you're at now.
A lot of trial and error. Really just kind of getting baptized by fire. I was always a guy, and I'm still this way. It might be a bad thing, but it's been one of the things that's helped me get to where I am. I've never really focused on my plan B or C, because I just felt like it created too much doubt for plan A. And I just felt like that took a lot away from what I really wanted to be in. So, and Dale, you played with me at Lake Erie, bro. I was a true freshman. And I started there, and how long did you stay there, Dale?
Year and a half. So redshirted my freshman year, and then started that sophomore year, and then decided to leave.
Yeah, it was fucking miserable, but I remember being there. I remember being there, and it was one of those moments where it was like, I gotta adapt again, So, I mean, things really started for me in high school. I was overlooked all the time. I'm not a tall guy. On a great day, I am 5'10". I'm 5'9". So I knew that I had a lot of things that I had to be efficient in and an expert at. My old man, he played in the NFL and the CFL. My uncle played at Wisconsin. I have a lineage of uncles who are collegiate coaches. So, I mean, football kind of ran in my bloodline, but I wasn't blessed with these meet the eye test features. My dad is 6'3", 250. He's a massive individual. My uncle was the same way. I just didn't have that, but I made up for it with strength and speed and being nasty and a crazy work ethic. So I remember my senior year of high school, I had 7 Division I offers. They were all FCS. They weren't huge, but they were Division I. My dumb ass, I messed around and didn't do everything I needed to do with grades. So I got myself in this position where I had to go to D2, right? It was a Lake Erie College. They gave me a full ride scholarship for football and track. I went there, I started, and I hated it. I left after my first semester, and I was back home, and I was at IMG. And I was in like this state of purgatory, which I wish on absolutely nobody, trying to figure out what I want to do. Do I want to keep playing football? Where's I going to go? So a D3 came around, and they offered me a scholarship, basically, to come play football there. So I went there, did football and track, and it was great for a little bit because I got ranked in the nation, even though I wasn't even a starter. Like, you guys, all of us here know the hierarchy. Like, oh, this dude's a senior, he's been here, he's going to play, yada, 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 whatever, we'll work you in the rotation. So they worked me in the rotation, and I always had a chip on my shoulder, you know, D3 ball. I'm a Division I athlete. You guys are working me in the rotation. Like, okay. So I get some attributes. Junior year comes around. My peers nominate me as a captain, and they don't play me. Like, they like treat me like the Pop Warner kid that has to get his like 10th place and then out, right? And I'm like, the hell is going on here? You know, it just didn't make any sense. It's like the first time dealing with like the politics of college football. And, you know, you have kids that come in, their parents are boosters, or, you know, boosters who are making decisions because of what they're investing, yada, yada. Nobody could understand why I wasn't playing. I mean, I never had a booster come up to me. He was like $1 million booster. And he was like, all right, is there a reason why you're not playing? And I was like, I don't know, sir. He's like, well, your university is about to lose a lot of money if they don't start playing you. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you. So game 3 comes around, and I just like, I'd had enough. Like, I had met with my coach. I was never late to class. I had like, I was flirting with a 3.0. I had like a 2.9 GPA. Always knew my assignments. I mean, I was a captain. I was ranked. I was like, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. And my coach could never give me an answer. And I would always ask him, like, hey, man, well, it's not, it's just you're not producing. I'm like, well, we film practice every day. So if you could show me on film where I'm not producing, I would understand and stop bitching. But like, bro, this doesn't make any sense. And he would never do it. So I called my dad and I said, hey, Pop, I'm done with this shit, man. I'm out. And he was like, it's the biggest mistake you'll ever make. Don't do it. And I'm like, nah. And that was like the turning point in my life. That was the first time at 21 I had made a decision for myself. You know, because a lot of us as football players or in any sport, if you've done it from the time you were a kid to the time you're a young adult, that for a lot of us, that's who your identity is. That's all you know. So when you have to make those decisions by yourself, it's scary, and it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I left. In D1, I got in touch with D1. They're like, hey, come down here for our like prep, you know, basically training you for like the combine. So I had like I said, I had like 2 years left, and I was like, fuck it. My dad played. I think I could do this shit. So I went there, and I qualified for the regional NFL combine. I ran like crazy numbers when I was doing this at D1. Had people come in from like Akron and check me out. And I was like, damn, okay, I can do this. 2018 was the combine. 3 days out before the combine, they canceled it for the first time in like 17 years. So I'm in Tallahassee. I'm with one of my old coaches, one of my mentors, who was an NFL and a CFL receiver, Kes McCorvey. And Kes is like, you want to play in the CFL? I'm like, dude, I don't know much about it. I know my old man played there, but like, I got to do something, bro. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So the GM from Saskatchewan had called him. They had talked about me. And around that time, Jacksonville had invited me to a workout, the Sharks. So Sia Burley, the guy who really gave me my start, who I'll forever be grateful for, he's like, dude, do you know what you just ran your 40 in? And I was like, no, sir. He was like, can you go run it again? I said, sure.
Must be something wrong with the watch, right?
Right. So they clocked me in twice at a 4.38. And they're like, you're hauling ass. So when it came time to do like the one-on-ones, I was just exposing people, right? They signed me. So I signed my first contract at 21. I was stoked. at this time, I didn't know much about the AFL and the NAL. I didn't know much about it, you know, and I was like, how much money can I actually make? How legit is this? And like, you know, Tommy Grady and like Skip and Ross, you know, you played with Ross, his weird ass.
Yeah.
Like these dudes were making big time money. Tommy Grady is like the Tom Brady in the AFL. This dude is like the GOAT.
That's what I was going to say, just for some context of the listeners. Like, these are some of the greatest. Tommy Grady probably will be known as top 3 greatest arena football quarterbacks of all time.
Just a total dog. I mean, all kinds of people were like, when I got into camp, I'm dealing with guys that just got released from the Vikings, the Dolphins. I'm like, holy shit, you know, we're introducing ourselves. I'm like, hey, I'm Wyatt, played at a D3. Like, I didn't know what to say, you know? So I balled out. I was doing great. Second day of minicamp, I tear my hamstring almost off the bone, right? So again, it's just like all these things, like you do great, and then you have to take these steps back. You do great, and it's like all this adversity is always coming at me. So I'm like, well, I'm getting cut for sure. Well, Cy Burley keeps me for like 6 weeks, right? And on IR. And I'm like, damn, dude, he must really like me. I get better, and I come back, I play, you know, I do kick return, I'm returning kicks, kickoff, whatever. I had a situation that I ran into, and I had to leave Jacksonville, right? Just young, dumb, thinking my shit didn't stink. I can always come back. I leave. Well, I had gotten calls at that time from like CFL, like Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, Montreal. I had attended a couple like OTAs in Columbus, you know, at that time. Albany had hit me up. So, I mean, I was like, whatever, you know, thinking my shit didn't stink. But I made like this decision to leave football because I wanted to be around the person I was with at the time. And it just kind of screwed me, you know, because I was always like getting invited to camps, getting invited to workouts, getting invited to OTAs, and then getting cut. And it was just like, you make it, then you get cut. You make it, then you get cut. So my last year was with the Predators. I talked to my agent. He's like, "Do you want to do anything in the CFL?" I'm like, "No, bro. Like, I don't want to go through that again. Like, it's just ridiculous. The amount of people that come in on the roster, certain amount of Americans. It's just a lot." So I'm like, "Nah." So I go to Orlando. Doesn't go the way I want in Orlando, and I'm like, dude, I have such a good career in strength and conditioning that's where the money's at. That's where the longevity's at. Like you have to come to a point. There's like a critical point, I feel like, in every athlete's life where you have to be like, are you okay with what you've done? And, you know, I had to realize and come to terms with the fact that, you know what, I have made it further than 1%. And I have done everything that everyone said I could not. So when football came to an end is when I really, really dove into strength and conditioning, because I had been doing what I'm doing right now in my offseason. You know, it's not like this. Like, I had been doing this since I was 19, but I had never really found my niche. You know, I was a personal trainer at Anytime Fitness, and then I was like, this is too lifestyle training. I don't like this. Where's my niche, you know? And then I got an opportunity at Titus Performance Academy to be a strength and conditioning coach. And I mean, that's where my career really blossomed. This was like in 2018. And my career just like took off. And that's where I was training like NBA, Olympic, NFL, MLB. I was running Florida State, training their guys for the pro day. I was working with FDLE at Pat Thomas Law Enforcement, training their guys, getting ready. And then when COVID hit, you know, everyone here, I'm sure, got affected by COVID. And I had to move out of Tallahassee. I moved back to Fort Myers, and I put like 10K into my garage, right? My garage, I made a gym in my garage, right? It was literally just for me, but like, because I've been in this industry, I know what I needed to make it like a state-of-the-art facility. Dumped this money in there, started working out. And then during COVID, my old man was like, hey, look, bro, like, gyms can't train people. Why don't you just start training people? You know, like, you're going to kill them with whatever they're trying to do. So I did that, and it just took off way faster than I expected. Like, I mean, when I say I had zero idea of where it was going to go, I had zero idea. Like right where I'm at right now, even talking to you guys, I had zero idea like something like this would happen, you know? And this is like the 7th or 8th one that I've been on in the last couple of months, just talking about what's been going on with me. And so from there, what happened was I got a couple of my NFL guys to come back and train with me. And they would train in the gym. And then I got called by a location in Lauderdale, and they wanted me to be the strength conditioning coach down there. So I'm doing what I'm doing at G6. I'm a strength and conditioning coach in Lauderdale. This is an hour and a half away from one another. So I'm 3 days out the week in Lauderdale. The other 4 days out the week, I'm in Fort Myers. While I'm in Fort Myers, the Anytime Fitness calls me that I used to work at, and they want me to be a consultant for their 2 franchise gyms where like I'm consulting about group training and how to program. So I'm like, whoa, okay, so this is crazy. So I'm doing these 3 things, and then I get this job that I'm telling you about right now at LCSO. And I'm doing what I'm doing with LCSO. D1 calls me, I'm like the DTP over there where I'm doing stuff with them, where I'm really like focusing in on performance training, you know, bringing coaches in, getting that ready. And then it just even got crazier. Like you guys know, like I trained Terrell Owens, I trained Sammy Watkins, I Kurt Benkert, Michael Perrine, like the list goes on and on. We get TO signed in the FCF. We're out there training TO, and then they start a TV show called Training with TO. And now it's like I have a TV show that's on FCF on Hulu. It's just like, it was almost, it's like, damn, I didn't expect this to go this way, but I could not be happier with where I'm at right now, you know? So, I mean, trying to bring you guys up to speed with like, that's just like a very condensed version of what's happened in the last like 2.5 years.
You still could be playing in Jacksonville. Jacksonville's going on right now. Then what? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
If you wouldn't have followed your heart there.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I've gotten calls from coaches and players like, dude, you need to come back. Because, you know, they're doing the Ironman football right now. People are pissed, you know, because people have to take paycheck cuts because of that. So, like, no, I'm straight.
Yeah, so you are with that. James?
So as you're kind of going through this, like, you know, atypical journey from athlete into strength and conditioning, right? A lot of times, like we'll have conversations with coaches who, you know, hang their cleats up after their 4 years of college, start in the field, get an internship, go from that internship, you know, start at a small market facility, and then kind of build into that, you know, longevity career as a strength and conditioning coach. You had a very expedited process into working with some high level athletes. At the time that you started seeing some of these higher level guys, you know, you knew speed and what it looked like and what it felt like because you were a fast dude, you were a speedster. You know, were there any moments that you were working with some of these guys that you just kind of had to take a step back and look and had like maybe a paradigm shifting moment in training to say like, okay, well, like it's one thing to be able to get a guy who runs a 5.3 and get him down to a 5 flat, but like, how am I able to help guys that are already at that level with that skill set to give them high quality training?
Yeah. So great question, bro. So best example is Sammy Watkins, right? So Sammy Watkins and I got connected a couple months ago to start training, right? Now, with what I do, I focus on sprint frequency, right? So that is watching like the front side mechanics from point A to point B. Like, how are we getting as much speed from one area to another, right? Like, what are we doing to do that, right? Well, it has to do with our leg cycle, meaning how the rotation in our front side mechanic is, okay? So I'm watching Sammy go through my movements, and I'm like, damn, bro. I'm like, do you feel fast right now? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, because your knee drive is shit. Like, I'm surprised that you are a 4.3 guy and you run with a knee drive like that. And like, I think this is why a lot of these elite guys come and train with me and like me, because I'm not like a yes man and I'm not a fanboy. Like, I'll tell them how, like, dude, like, you look like shit right now. You know what I mean? Like, you want to sign $1 million bonus? Don't do this. So we're going, and I'm like, try this. So we start doing this. And I'm like, do you remember when the deuce was loose was a big thing? Like, you remember when everybody wanted Sammy Watkins because of how elite and threatening you looked when you run? I'm like, right now, Jalen Ramsey is not afraid of you. Like, you need to, like, go back to that guy because that guy is scary. Well, we started doing that, right? The next day, the guy that he had doing shit with, he let him go. And then he just started doing stuff with me. So, like, the thing is it's about being able to recognize where the inability is at, you know, and then where the ability lies. So, like, for me, watching where the infringement's at, it's like, this is off. Why is this off? Well, it's off because you're doing what you've always done, what, you know, divine intervention has gifted you with, right? And then you have people that try to tweak it, and it's like, why? Why are we trying to, like, we don't have to do all this fancy shit to get from one area to another. And, like, I have a lot of friends, you know, that are Instagram influencers that do a lot of route stuff. And dude, that shit is awesome. Like, especially if there's big body guys that can apply it, like Mohamed Sanu or Julio Jones, that's great. But a lot of people are not them, you know, like, you can't, it's not always applicable to certain routes, but like some guy, like my boy Route God in receiver school, they're fantastic. Like, they know, like, they got their shit down pat, and like they know how to, like, deliver a message, you know, to their clientele and be able to have them affected efficiently, you know? But yeah.
So the amount of sound effects during a route doesn't have anything to do with the effectiveness of actually running routes. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
So I am a guy who loves to be animated, right? Like, my favorite guy, one of my guys that I always refer my receivers to is Bruce Lee, because I loved Bruce Lee. I have him tatted all over my body because he was so animated, you know? And I'm like, guys, it's okay to, like, you know, when you're like, like running into a route, it's okay to let that out. Even boxers, when they're hitting, you know, they're breathing with everything they do, you know? And I tell that to my MMA fighters, like, it's okay to be animated with the shit that you do, but it all needs to, like, make sense. You don't need to go side to side like a million times to make no progressive yards. Like, what the quarterback is, you're not even a target anymore. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be able to get progressive ground in order to be a play in any situation, you know?
Yeah, all that stuff looks cool until you're not open. And
right.
And he throws to somebody else. I mean, that was always like one of the biggest things when I was playing is I just moved a little differently and trained a little differently than some of the other guys. But it didn't matter because you could see it on the field, right? Like, when I was open, that's what mattered. It didn't really, just because I wasn't doing a certain things that some of the other guys was doing,
right?
You know, that didn't mean I could make some plays. So when you were working with these guys, and I do want to go back, talk here shortly, talk a little bit about G6 and what that is. But, you know, you made the good transition about working with T.O., working with Sammy. What are some of the things that, and you already mentioned one, but what are some of the other things as far as skill work goes, as far as in the weight room goes, that keeps these guys coming back to work with you? Like, why is it Wyatt that they're the ones who they're going to, as opposed to some of these other guys that I'm sure they've worked with in the past, you know, being these big time athletes?
So even as a coach, I ask myself that too, because I'm human, you know, like, what is it that these guys see in me? You know, what am I doing that makes them, you know, like, that's also like us, you know, even as men having our own insecurities about, like, you know, what is so good about what I do that makes them want to come back, you know? And I was up in Atlanta, and I got this question answered. So I'm up in Atlanta for the FCF, and I'm up there training T.O. before he goes out to play. Now everybody sees T.O., and then they see this tatted up white boy, you know, training T.O., and they're like, who the hell is this guy, right? So his agent, Rodriguez, is like, oh, that's Griff. That's his strength coach. And the commissioner is like, what is it about him, you know, that, like, keeps T.O. coming back? And T.O.'s like, because I trust him and he produces results. And I think that's what it is. Like, I don't feed people a crock of shit. Like, I tell them what they need to hear the same way I would appreciate it if somebody, these guys are surrounded by yes men every day. Oh, you look amazing. You're doing so good. You're doing so great. I love that. That looks good. And I'm the type of guy who's like, okay, so if he actually looks like shit and you're just saying that so you don't lose some type of connection, what quality do you actually have? Like, there's no quality in what you say, you know, there's no validation in it. So for me, that's what I think it is. I'm able to communicate on a level with these guys that they understand and respect, because I'll tell them what they need to hear, and then I'll be able to showcase and produce it, because I'm not a coach that will be like, do this and do this. I walk that walk, you know, like I'll be able to demonstrate exactly how it looks. Like Sammy texted me the other day and he was like, bro, I look like you out there today. Like, and I'll put that on everybody. Like, there is nobody right now who looks more fluid or more sound than me when it comes to demonstrating and getting a point across when it comes to movements. Like, I'm sound, I am fluid. And I know that. And that's why it's easy, because I can show them how it needs to look and how it should feel. And I think that is why.
Bro, I was actually in Atlanta same time you were out there. We were doing one of the running backs who plays in the FCS. Quinn is his first name. He was an actor, a stunt double on this movie that we were working on. And I saw you were out there and didn't get an opportunity to link up, but that again would have been another interesting thing because we just kind of crossed each other's paths. That's so important. I think that you mentioned about kind of that yes men mentality, because every pro that I've been around that James has trained, who I've gotten great opportunities to work with, and also Dale has trained, the conversations are there. They're exactly the same way that you're having them, right? I think they're so used to people telling them how good they are at everything they do, and they've been so used to that for their whole lives. I think it's important to get guys who actually can kind of break them down a little bit and help them understand that, yes, you are an elite athlete. You are one of the best in the world, but there are still things that we can get better at. And I love that you bring that up, because that's so important. And I don't know, James, Dale, if you guys have any more thoughts on that, but I think that's such an important key for people to understand that they still are humans, right? And they still are just like us, just because they play on Sundays and make millions and millions of dollars.
And I think to add to that, right? So like from a younger coach's mentality, like, like speaking to younger coaches here, it's like, you have to be okay with losing a client because you're honest with the client. And if that's why you lose them, then maybe that wasn't a good fit in the first place. So like, you have to kind of be true to what you see and believe in yourself, to be honest. And then if that leads to losing a client from that honest conversation, then that's just a natural part of the process. And that training coach mentality, or that the relationship wasn't really meant to be, and it wouldn't be a good situation, down the road anyway, if you're not feeling like you can just openly critique or actually like do what you're being paid to do, which is coach. And I think that's where, maybe younger coaches have a little bit of, hesitation to be honest.
For sure. I mean, when I first started out, I was like, I didn't want to tell anybody they were doing a bad job. Like, I didn't know how to communicate or relay that message, but it just comes with experience when you're like, okay, if I don't do it, they're just going to hurt themselves. Like, we don't want to practice bad habits. So I agree with you. 100%. And it's like, if it's not meant to be because you're upset that I'm being honest with you, then you need to go find somebody who's going to tell you what you want to hear. Like, I want to tell you, so. Yeah.
Right. Dale gets the opportunity to work with some of the top linemen. I mean, not only in the state, but in the nation. And that, I think even the high school athlete might be even a little more fragile, depending on the individual, than the professional athlete. Dale, you have any thoughts on that kind of communication line there, Dale, with some of the guys that you're working with?
Yeah. We say this a lot here at T3, a lot with, a lot of James's team grow meetings, which are, personal development, sales, things like that. And it's more of just like explaining to them why you're here. Like, why I think you have a great story of like how you battle adversity. I always bring up kind of like how I, did the same with my injury, and coming back into the coaching realm. I think, sharing those type of stories, I think kind of open their eyes a little bit more. Because, at first, I say same thing as why I transferred to a D3 school. Like, how am I going to get trust from, Jedrick Wills or, any of these like offensive linemen that have been training, or even like some of these top high school linemen. So, and it's, it comes down to like, getting really creative. I hate doing the same drill like twice. Like these guys. Things like that. And then just being able to like, again, like not put them on a pedestal, like just treat them like they're a normal person, have those conversations with them. And, at the same time, don't be afraid to tell them that they're wrong. I think it's just finding that fine line between getting comfortable with the individual too. But I don't know. I think, personally, like I had trouble at first dealing with some of these pro linebackers that I worked with just because I didn't play the position, but being able to explain, different movement patterns to them and testing their mental side of the game is something that I think that kind of helped me develop their trust.
Yeah, like for me, it's always too one of those things. It's like as a receiver, I know where I'm going before the ball is snapped based off of the alignment of that defensive back, linebacker, or safety. I know that I probably have 2 to 3 routes that I can make adjustments off based off of where my connection is at with my quarterback. So being able to relay that to these guys that are obviously doing that already, and then being like, okay, how can I now tap into the defensive back's mind and be like, okay, look, I know that the defensive back, a good defensive back, is reading from here to here and is looking at A, B, C, and D, okay? Now, if you do this, this is an indication for him. So we have to always be deceptive. That's like the thing. So like always creating and making sure that they understand that deception is the key to a receiver's art, making them think we're going east, but really the whole time we're going west. And that's like the art that I love about it. And the other thing too is like, talk about like touch base on us, being at a lower level in college. And then I think too, bro, like with me, whenever I'm with him, it's like, no, because I've had those moments where I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Like, why do you guys trust me? And then I'm like, no, Griff, you're supposed to be here. Like you're supposed to be here right now. That's why they come back to you, because you are supposed to be here. And honestly, if you needed to play and wanted to, you could. So like, it's always those things. Because like Dale, I remember playing with you, bro. Like you were a nasty ass lineman, bro. Like you're mean as shit. I didn't want to go in the trenches with you. Like, staying out. And when I was at Lake Erie, I was a safety. I wasn't even a receiver yet. Like they knew I was fast, but I was aggressive downhill. So I was a safety and a kick returner before I even moved to receiver. So, but yeah, no, I think you bring up some good points, bro, for sure.
Tell us about, so to get to the point you're at now, was G6 the start of it? Was it post school is when the G6 stuff started?
So G6 really came to life around COVID.
Okay. And so, is that the garage gym training and is that all that kind of stuff?
Yep. So G6 XP was what started in the garage and just grew into this monster that it is right now. And the only reason I say monster is because I'm so proud of creating this lane, right? Like having a lineage of people in my family that have went a certain route. And I've never had anyone in my family doubt me, right? No one's ever doubted me, but they were always wanting the best for me. It's like, oh, maybe you should think about this, or maybe you should think about this. And it was like, no, like I'm not going down a path that one is going to have me live in the shadow of you, or two, that like I'm not truly happy in. And having them come back and be like, wow, we are so incredibly proud of you because you have done it. You are creating this own lane, And throughout the journey of my success, especially lately, like reaching these new heights and, making good money and making new connections and being around superstar athletes and just superstar celebrities in general, I've seen the fakeness in people that I thought were close in my circle. And it's like, I've had to make so many cuts because I'm like, damn, like, one, you're genuinely not happy for my success unless you feel a part of it. And two, if I'm not devoting any type of time to you, you're mad at me because I have shit going on. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't have that much time to hate on somebody. So like, you really are not who I thought you were. So like, as I've gotten older and as this process has gone on, I'm like, I see how having a small circle is so important, because I'm a nice guy by nature. Like I always want to help people and put people on. Like that is my crutch, and that is also my biggest flex. It's me being able to provide opportunities for people. Like that is the best part about what I do is I can give someone an opportunity. But the biggest crutch about it and like downfall is that you give too much and then people just continue to take shit. So that's one thing that I've noticed immensely the last couple of months, more so than anything.
I have this thought pretty often when I hear people with similar stories as yours, right? And basically coming for, going through different routes, getting cut different times, moving to different schools, eventually having a ton of success. Is it possible for a coach or an athlete in your mind to be able to have success like you are now without having a chip on their shoulder? Or do you think you have to go through those bad times to be able to come out on top?
I think, and I say this to everybody, because like when I get asked this, we have to come to the realization that at the end of the day, no one is ever going to give a fuck more about you than you will. Like no one is ever going to want things for you more than you will want them for you. No one is ever going to care more about your passions or desires more than you will. So like when you waste your time trying to like express what you want to do to people to hopefully get some affirmation from them, like you're wasting your time because they don't really care. You know what I mean? Like the only person that gives a shit about what you want is you. I think you need to have a certain level of grit and you need to have a chip on your shoulder because you're going to go through so many trials. Like even now, like people look from the outside looking in, people are like, oh, your life is so this and that. And it's just like, dude, if only you knew the struggles that I go through on a regular basis. Like I'm human. Like people think that these celebrities like have it made in the shade. It's like, dude, these guys are people. You know what I mean? Like they are people. They just happen to have a platform, like we all go through shit, but like in order to get where you want, you have to be willing to make cutoffs. You have to be willing to say like, no, this is for me and I need to do what's best for me. And I also need to have that chip on my shoulder where it's like, you're not going to deter me from the things that I want. You're not about to tell me what I can and can't do. You don't know me. You don't know my heart. Like you have no idea what I'm capable of doing. So, and there's nothing more dangerous than a motivated person. Like when you're motivated, those can do anything. They can do anything.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I want to touch back on the receiver training, right? So James and I work with some receivers. Dale works with a ton of them in his football groups. What do you think are some of the things that, football players in general, but receivers really should be working on? You don't see them working on a ton when you see them on Instagram or when you see them in person or when you see them at their high school or see them at their college. What if you were completely in control of a receiver's program on the field and their program in the weight room, what does something like that look like to you?
I would say deception. And there's a difference between deception, right? And making something look the same all the time and continuously doing something different as opposed to eyewash, right? So like the things that
you're talking about in the route specifically.
I'm talking about in the progression of a route. Like there's things that you do, right, that look cool, right? Or it looks like you're doing something, but really you've created no type of separation or progression.
A lot of that.
As opposed to being very aggressive every time you run the ball and knowing I know where I'm going. That's the thing. Like as receivers, we have to be intelligent people. We have to understand our route and we have to understand where we're going to be, because that is going to determine how you dictate the deception of your route. The other thing that I would say is aggression back to the ball. Too many times I'll see kids catch like this, or they'll catch in the body. And I'm like, look, dude, that ball is 50-50. There's no reason that we can't be just as aggressive back to that ball as the defender is. Like, don't be so in here. Be more out here. Like, do not be afraid to go back to that ball and be aggressive back there. And every route needs to look the same. When I talk to these DBs I know in the NFL, I'm like, look, man, tell me the people that are the most threatening to you. And no matter what you hear about them, the reason why they say like people like OBJ or Stephon Diggs or Julio Jones or AJ Brown, every play, these guys think they're getting the ball. They believe they're in every route is 100%. that is what makes the receiver great, because they know there is no limitations to what they will be able to physically do. They will go and sell out every time. And that's how I want a lot of my receivers to be. Like, look, man, if you're running a slant, that slant every time needs to look like a fucking fade. You need to attack that shit so aggressively. And whether we are counting yardage or steps, it needs to be in the same spot every time. Just as fast, just as aggressive, and just as deceptive. Like that, those are like the biggest things I focus on. Biggest things.
What's some of those things you see between the elite guys and the kids who are just getting going, who watch too much Instagram? Like what are some of the, is it intent off the line of scrimmage? I mean, or is it just being able to catch the ball when you're open? I mean, what are some of those things that kind of separate the good from the great?
I think it's them understanding their body. I think it's them actually understanding the game. Knowledge is the biggest success that you can have when it comes to winning. You know, like without knowledge, like success leads clues, right? Tony Robbins always says that success leads clues. So like following the patterns, why are people like Stephon Diggs always creating separate? Cooper Kupp, why is Cooper Kupp always getting open? What is this guy doing that is creating this separation, right? I know he's not the fastest dude in the NFL. Somehow this boy is getting loose. How? And you watch what he does. It's subtle, but it's deceptive and quick. Everything when you watch these guys off the line is like, when I'm doing speed movements, I say controlled speed. It's like a controlled route. Like they know where they're going. They know when to downshift and they know when to upshift. Like they have these gears that they understand when to apply them. And that just comes with time. You know, and some people just have it. Some kids have it. They're just talented and gifted. There's no doubt about it. But a lot of it takes time and effort. You know, like you have to understand routes. You have to understand when you're at the top of the route, when you need to break down and come out of the top of the route or at the beginning of the route. How fast, like what gear do I need to be in? I refer to running routes as gears, right? And having gears, wanting to shift, you know? So whenever I watch these guys and whenever I coach them, that's one of the things I see that is always an easy transition sometimes for them to understand. It's like, hey, it's a gear shift. You know, we know that if you're running a 15-yard comeback, right, you need to make sure that off the break, like off the go, you are aggressive downfield, right? And then it's like this progressive downshift where you're still look fast, but you're slowing down. But you can't really tell that, you know? And then at that last minute, boom, that e-brake comes on and you're out. And he's going north and you're south. Like that's what it is.
Dude, I just had that conversation. It can't be just now because he's playing in one of the leagues, but there's a former Browns tight end who James Dale and I have all worked with. And I had that same conversation with him because I make the same kind of metaphors about the gears and downshifting and all that kind of stuff.
The Browns tight end?
Yeah, it was. Is currently in
he's USFL.
Michigan USFL on Michigan's team.
USFL. Yeah. Good player.
He was a tight end too.
Okay.
His name's Jordan Franks. He's Felipe Franks' brother.
Okay.
He's been in our facility to run routes before. Didn't do any work with us, but he's definitely used our turf a little bit.
Okay, yeah. Good dude. He's a good dude.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Yeah, he would recognize the blue turf.
Yeah.
We were having the same conversation. This is a guy who played a couple years in the NFL. And he said, bro, nobody has ever explained it like that. Nobody's ever explained route running like that. And I thought, you've been playing tight end at a high level for your entire life and nobody said it like that. I mean, I think, Wyatt, that's so important to make that connection to some of the receivers who think it's always 100%. And then they try to figure out why they can't get out of the top of the break after they sprint for 15 yards. And you just can't do it. It's impossible. Even the guys who do it at the top level don't do it at that pace and with that intent and with that tempo. It's always, I like how you said that, you're slowly kind of downshifting to where when you need to make the break, you can come out of it and you can run out of it. But I think that's a huge point for young kids to understand. The other point I think is when running routes, every move that you see these NFL guys do is intentional. When they take a step outside to the outside shoulder, it's intentional. If they step to the inside shoulder, it's intentional. And that's something that we see when we do our Saturday skill stuff with our younger kids, is they're just running routes to run routes and not even thinking about what it is we're trying to get.
They don't know what, they're just like, oh, I have a slant. Cool. I'm going to run that slant. Or it's like the one thing I see in kids primarily that they do a lot is when they don't know how to control their speed, or they don't trust their speed or their ability to stop on the dime, they do what I call is like a DB indicator. And it's that fucking toe drag, right? And they're just like, drag that back toe. And I'm like, you are just giving him a reason to stop and just wait for you to make a move. Because what is that doing other than telling me as a coach that you don't trust your ability to stop on a dime? You know, like you have to use this like automatic back brake. And either you're doing it because you are relying on it, or two, you think it looks cool and it just doesn't. It looks stupid.
What I was gonna say, it's probably a look thing for a lot of these guys.
The other thing that I noticed, and I'm sure you guys have seen this too, is you see all these receivers that do this shit, and it's like, hey, look, unless you're OBJ, stop doing this. Unless you're Antonio Brown, stop doing this. Like, you are not them. It doesn't look cool on you. You look like an idiot, and you're not getting anywhere. They'll like cross their arms on their legs, right? Or like their like front foot is like turned. It's like tilted, almost like their foot look like they're making a T, right? And I'm like, you understand that if your feet are like this, your first step of your front foot is going to be like this. You're going from here to here. Like, it's a wasted movement. You know, what are we doing right now? Like, you're taking 0.2 of a second off of where you need to go because you want to go like this to here. It just doesn't make sense, you know? So, kids these days, they don't know what they're doing. They're just doing something to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's funny you bring that up. How about when it comes to things in the weight room, like when it comes to things that you're doing in the garage, right? Like what do you want that to look like when it comes to receiver, defensive back, skill position guys?
Well, the abandonment of technique, right? The thing I think that gets so abandoned nowadays is Olympic lifting, right? And it is such a crucial part in what we do as athletes. If we are not actually doing Olympic movements that are focusing on every muscle group in our body at one time, right? Nothing says you are an athlete more than being able to do a hang clean. Like, if you can properly do a hang clean and get your elbows up, and like you don't have to leave the ground with your feet, dude, you're showing me some athletic ability here, right? Like, if you're showing me that you can front squat, right, properly, sit back on your heels, you're not rocking to your toes, and you are going perfectly up and down and breaking that parallel plane, okay, we're working with somebody who understands control of the body. You know what I mean? Like, those are things that we abandon all the time, you know? And me, I'm not a compound lifter. I don't do deadlifts. None of my athletes do deadlifts. I think that's one of the worst, in my opinion, it's one of the worst lifts of your body. The other thing that I do is I'm time under tension, explosive power, and I'm negative lifting. So like resistance training or rejection presses, you're not going past the iso phase. You know, so we all know the 3 phases: concentric, eccentric, isometric, right? Well, when we're lifting, whether we're squatting, benching, it doesn't matter. If we're going to do a rejection day to build muscle stamina and to build maximum power, you're going to go under the safety arms and we're going to press up underneath it until you can't press no more. And then once you're dead out, we're going underneath it and you're knocking out reps. Like, I want to see where your muscle stamina is at. We're going to build explosion and power. That's the way to do it. That's the recipe that I have. And it's continuously worked, right? Because as athletes, our central nervous system, when it gets shocked, like if we're in a game, our heart rate is elevated, right? But we are expected as athletes to be efficient and operate at an elevated heart rate, right? So if I can get an athlete when I'm training, just lifting weights, not even doing any type of real functional movement, if I can get him to get an elevated heart rate just from attacking his posterior chain, and then him to be able to operate effectively while we are doing these movements, it's letting me know, like, okay, this transition from here to the field is going to be pretty good because he's able to focus and operate at an elevated heart rate while his central nervous system is shocked, or she, whoever it is, it doesn't matter. But that's like the whole recipe for me when it comes to training. Okay, target your central nervous system, shock it, get your heart rate elevated, and look and see if you can actually affect these movements properly. And if you can, okay, now I know what I'm working with, how I can program with you, and what we need to be doing on the field of play, wherever the field of play is at. So
there is definitely a carryover between, and I mean, this could be a James thing, between how an athlete moves around a barbell in space and how they move on the field. I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to see an athlete move well on a hang clean or a power clean or whatever Olympic variation and know that they are aware enough to move properly on a field. There's just something about those exercises. And James and Dale, if you guys have thoughts on that, which I'm sure you do, feel free to, let us know. But those are two of those exercises where when we're working with groups in a team training setting, if I just watch the athlete's power clean, I could probably tell you on a basketball team, the starting five. I could probably tell you if I'm working with just skill guys, which receiver starting, which defensive back is starting. There are outliers. There are guys who can't clean anything, can't clean a bar, but then can go out there and ball out. But there's definitely something when watching an athlete move around a barbell in space that shows me that they are athletic enough to perform on the field.
Yeah. And I think like without, weighing too heavily on the side of like trusting our eyes in the weight room and making assumptions about athletes, because like at the end of the day, like he could run really good routes and he's really athletic body, but like, can he catch? Right. So there's like there's the little things in there. Right. But like, I'm a huge proponent of Olympic lifting. This will already be dropped next Wednesday, by the time we get through it. But I had an awesome conversation with one of our coaches, not one of our coaches, but a friend of ours, Will Rittel, who played in the NFL and CFL, and he has the Haas Project, and he's actually dropping an Olympic weightlifting program. And so that's what we were talking about. But like to think about what is actually going on in that movement, right? So like the first thing is we have to be able to understand how to brace. The second thing is we able to have to use the ground to our benefit to produce massive amounts of precise force. And I think that's like the key word is like it's precision of force production. And then after that happens, we have to have the kinesthetic awareness to then move around the object we just produced a whole bunch of force into. Can we use that object to leverage our body weight in a position that then we can athletically catch and brace again? So like, show me another movement in the weight room that's that fast with that much weight, right? And maybe I'll stop Olympic with lifting my athletes. Yeah, but there isn't that out there. So I'm not gonna go away from it, right? Our baseball players clean, our football players clean, right? Any athletes that play sports that are fast, right? They're going to be doing Olympic movements. And that's just like, I think, a trending topic for coaches who don't really understand or who might not have had the experience in Olympic lifting. They just like to kind of bash it because it's a talking point for them, even though they haven't spent enough time with a bar in their hands. Are there other valuable things out there? Sure. Do we need to do it? No. Is it going to turn a college level athlete into a pro athlete? No. But I can't find anything to replace it that I like better than.
Yeah. And like, I mean, how many times have we seen people just do nonsensical lifts? Like, hey, I'm going to load a barbell up and do a box jump. Like, what? Why? For what reason?
With bands and then onto a Bosu ball.
Yeah,
too.
like,
it's a little out of
reason for this,
out of hand.
Or like that one guy who's like, he's like attaching a band and then like a bench to his like waist and like doing muscle ups. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, where did you even conjure this idea?
That's the guy that can't catch the football.
Right. And that's what I was going to say, right? It's like the same.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, right? Like you don't have the skill set. You've got to try to make up for it in the weight room, try to do some cool stuff, and which you'll probably more likely get hurt than you will have any type of good transfer to what you do on the field. It's tough, man. Social media is a great thing, but because it makes connections like this, right? It brings guys like us together to have conversations that we most likely would not have if we only were in person. But it also exposes especially young athletes to a lot of just really tough in bad information that is hard for kind of a novice mind to work themselves through. So, you know, again, another reason that we're connected is I appreciate the good stuff you're putting out, and you're able to kind of, again, help sift through that, right? Like, what does it really take? It takes a lot of good intentional reps as a receiver to be better at receiver. You know, we get the question all the time, and I had it pretty recently with one of our kids who said, "Hey, I have trouble getting in and out of my breaks. What drill do you think I should do?" I said, "I think you should train running in and out of your breaks more." And he said, no, but like, it's this specific cut that I can't make. And I said, yep, run that cut more.
Yeah, keep running that.
Yeah. They keep doing it. Like, you know, that's what it takes. Don't try to find something on the internet that you can attach a band or a BOSU ball and, you know, just go out on the field and do that. You know, again, I think it's a tough thing for some kids to understand. Last couple of things, man, I want to talk to you about is, you mentioned a few of them now, but your strengths as a coach, right? To be super successful, you got to have strengths. You're honest, right? You're available, right? Like, to be able to travel and work with some of these guys. What are some of the other things that you would maybe give advice to young coaches who want to do exactly what you do and work with these big name guys? You know what I mean? Like, run your own business, have your own, you know, your own brand. What is some advice that you would give to some of these guys who, if they don't have these certain strengths, maybe that they could start to work on to eventually get to the point where you're at?
Yeah. I mean, like, with me, like, fortunately for me, like, I had like some credibility going into this, you know, so it wasn't like, you know, I think it'd be harder for people to go into it without like having something to your repertoire, you know, but like, the one thing I think we all have to realize is that the best leaders were the best followers. And we have to take the pride aside and be like, okay, who is the best in the field right now at what I want to do? And then study what they do, and then go from there. Be like, okay, if I know that this person is the best at what they do, how do I get in with a gym, right? And start building my name a little bit, you know, and who can I learn under that's going to help give me credibility and also advance my knowledge of what I'm doing. Those are the biggest things. Me, I've never been afraid to ask questions, but I've never been afraid to, I was never afraid to question something, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, if something didn't make sense, I was like, why are we doing that? It doesn't make any sense. You know, like, you have to be able to ask questions, because if you're too insecure to do that, you're never going to grow or learn. And that's the biggest thing I can say. And the other thing is, if you believe strongly enough and you're passionate enough about it, you just need to follow it through, because there's no real way for you to determine where you're going to be. I had absolutely zero idea or intentions of being where I'm at right now. I think the dumbest question people can get asked in an interview is, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Well, I got to be honest. I don't know where I see myself next week.
Right. Hold on a second. Why we lost your audio here real quick.
You're on a journey, and you got to.
Yep, there we go. We actually lost the audio. So if you want to go back, I'll edit this post production. So yeah,
right after you said, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Where do you? Yeah.
Sorry, I was getting a phone call. Everybody knows I'm on a fucking podcast right now. So what I was saying is that when someone asks you that, like, hey, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Yada yada. It's like, dude, I don't know where I see myself next week. You know, like, there's no real way to dictate or plan for the things you want 5 years from now. The things I want 5 years from now are the same things I want right now. Why would I wait to plan for something I want 5 years down the line? Like, they're going to change along the process, you know? So you just have to be able to take that jump and just take that step and be like, hey, look, I'm going to see it through, and wherever it takes me, it takes me. You know, what I learned, I'm either going to get baptized by fire, crash and burn, or I'm going to, you know, pick myself back up. You know, it's not about, because I've been rejected plenty of times, or I've failed plenty of times. And I put a thing out the other day with me training TO on the TV show I have called Training with TO. And, you know, I take moments and I sit back, and it's important for us to be able to like, be like, you know what, damn, dude, like I've been doing some shit, you know, like I have accomplished some things. You have to give that self morale to yourself. And I put a quote up there, and it was just something I had thought of. And it was, I had found no solace in my victories. Rather, I had found the triumph in my conquers along my adversities. And that's where I find that sense of like peace and that sense of accomplishment. It's like not about where I'm at right now. It's about all the bullshit I went through to get there and how I was able to get past it. You know, my dad's my biggest inspiration in this world. And Dale, you remember when we were at Lake Erie, we had to beat Saginaw in like 10 years. My dad comes in, gives us a motivational speech, and we beat the shit out of Saginaw, right?
I definitely remember that. He's a scary, intense dude.
Yeah, he's intense, bro. He's the greatest guy in the world, bro. I love my dad to death. And he has this quote that he says to me. There's two quotes. One of them is, champions never make the same mistake twice. And that always resonated with me. It's like, you know what? If I fuck up once, I learn from it, but I will never do that again. And then the other one he says is, courage forges the path through all obstacles, but fear is forever going to be the thief of our dreams. And it's like, damn, like those types of things resonate with me, because it's like the unknown is scary. If you're going into this and you don't know where you want to be, but you want to jump into it, that fog is very scary. But once you make it through there, it's like, okay, hey, I'm here now. What do I got to do to get out of it? And you just got to see it through. You just got to see it through.
I'm just jotting down those quotes. Those are pretty good.
Those are all from, I'm Little Griff and that's Big Griff, and they all come from Big Griff.
all from Big Griff. Coach Dale, man, before we wrap up and ask this final question, was there anything we missed? I know there were a couple of things that you said you wanted to cover, but I think we did a pretty good job of getting through our talking points. Was there anything we missed?
No, I just wanted to say, like, you know, I think we're, you know, same age, 26, right? Yeah. I mean, just, you know, like, you know, going through like the coaching realm, you know, and starting, you know, at such a young age, like, what are some things that like, kind of like, you know, that were obstacles or even like humbled you a little bit? Like, what are some of those experiences and, you know, on the uprise of you coming to the coach you are today?
Yeah. Thinking that I had my shit figured out and then getting put on the spot, and it's like, I don't know anything. It's like, I don't know what I'm talking about. Because, like, I know what's worked for me, but not everyone is me. You know, like, what works for Antonio Brown is not going to work for the masses. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be able to relay a message that is going to be applicable to people, you know, and how you deliver that message is entirely upon your delivery. You know, like, you have to be able to communicate. And that was the one thing that I pride myself on now, is my communication. I know how to communicate with whatever demographic I'm dealing with, you know, and that was one thing coming into this career where I was self-conscious, because when you come into it young and you're dealing with people that are probably older than you, it's like, how is there any validation of what I'm saying? I'm half the age of this person, you know, and like,
that's a great point.
You know, it's like, but it's like, it's all about it. You know what? It brings me back. This guy, his name is Rich. When I first started training, he told me, he said, "You want to know how you be successful in this field?" And I said, "Yeah, tell me." This guy's like 50 at the time. I was 19. He was like, "If you look good and you sound like you know what you're talking about and you can produce results, you're going to go a long way." And it's all about confidence. You know, like, if you're talking to a group of people, like if you have a group of athletes, and let's say you have like 5 NFL guys in the group, and you know you're getting ready to do combine prep or something, or like your off-season prep, and you're like, "All right, guys, so like we're going to do this. And then it's just like, do you even know what they're doing, bro? Like, you need to come in, and this whiteboard is here just for like liability. I don't even need to talk to you about it. Like, hey guys, today we are working full body day. You know, we're going to do we're working on the frequency of a clean. We're going to do clean pull and high pull, and then we're going to work into the actual full clean movement. And like, you need to be able to just be like, this is what we're doing, why we're doing it, right? Confidence is everything. And then being able to like I've had people tell me that, bro, when they're like, when you walk in the room, for whatever reason, people gravitate to you, you know? And that's not me being cocky. It's just the way I walk around. I walk around like I'm 6'5". You know, like I walk around, it's like, I know what I do works. You can't tell me otherwise. Doesn't mean I won't take advice. It doesn't mean I'm not going to stop learning. But I know that right now what I'm doing has got me to where I am right now. So like, yes, I'm very confident in what I can do for people. Confidence, I guess, would be the thing I'm trying to put.
Yeah, man. Great point. And that's just a thing we see a lot of times with young coaches, because there's so much information out there. It's like, how do I digest all these books of training information, right? Find what you're good at, get really, really good at it, and be able to deliver on that. Last question, bro, what we finish every podcast with, where do you think we are falling short? And what do you think we are missing in the strength and conditioning field?
I thought you were about to say, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yeah. And where, I already took that off my list.
Yeah. What do I think we're missing in the strength and conditioning field? I think we are missing the cultivation of people that want to help one another in our field. And I say that because when I'm hiring people, right, I am hiring coaches that do not have this complex where it's like, if they are good at something, they are unwilling to help another coach out because they're afraid that that knowledge could help them and then put them back. I think it's important to have a cohesive unit in this community that we have as strength and conditioning coaches. Because, and here's the deal, like, I don't refer to myself as a trainer. I wouldn't refer to none of you guys as trainers, right? You guys are strength and conditioning coaches. We are either strength conditioning coaches, human performance analysts, or we are performance coaches. That is what we do. We focus on performance training. And when I am going through hiring, that's what I'm looking for. People that are willing to share information and collectively grow as a unit. That's what we're missing. It's too competitive in our field right now. And people are like, oh no, like, dude, there's these dickheads down in Lauderdale, right? I'm not even afraid to say that because, like, what I asked this guy a question like, oh, you're a sprint coach. Tell me about like what you do. Bro, like he looked at like Bon Raider. He was like, bro, like I don't know if I can tell you that. I'm like, okay, like, bro, you think I give a fuck about what you do? Like, I'm just trying to like ask you a question, you know? Sure, but it's like, yeah, like people like that, when you have this complex where one, you think your shit's too good to even tell people, or like you feel threatened by them because they're going to take that information. Like, where's the problem in that? So you're saying if somebody uses the thing that you do to help other people get better, isn't that like credit to you? Like, people are using your shit. Like, they're basing how to make people better off of whatever you have cultivated or conjured up. Like, I don't understand that. When people ask me to be like apprentices, or they want to be understudies, or they want to shadow me, I love that, because now it's like I have a piece of what I've been working on to create my own name, and somebody else can carry that on, and then they might be able to do something better with it. Like, I'm not that guy. I don't have a complex like that. That's what we're missing in this field, in my opinion.
Couldn't agree more, man. Another reason why we decided to start this podcast, to connect like-minded individuals, to be able to give as much sound, good information to as many people as possible. And so we appreciate you coming on, bro. This has been awesome. For everybody who wants to follow up with you and follow you and get in touch with you, where can they find you on social media?
So I have a Twitter, or I do not have a Twitter. I'm sorry. I don't have a Twitter. I had a TikTok.
It's definitely not on Twitter.
Definitely not on Twitter, guys. I had a TikTok account where I had like a TikTok manager, but I haven't really done anything with it lately because I've been so busy. Instagram is the best place to reach me. Coach Wyatt Griffith is my Instagram name. You know, I try to reach out to everybody that gets back to me. Like, I have a lot of people messaging me all the time about stuff, so I try to do my best to get back. But I have so much content I need to drop too, and I haven't had any time to drop it. But yeah, Coach Wyatt Griffith on Instagram is the best place to follow me.
Awesome. Awesome, bro. We'll send everybody your way there on social media, man. And again, we really appreciate you coming on, Dale. Thanks for linking us up, bro. And loving what you've been doing on social media and watching everything you've been doing. Definitely gonna tune into the show. It's on. You said it's on Hulu and it's on.
So it's on Hulu. Yeah. So if you go on Hulu and you type in fan controlled football, there's a segment on there where it's like the TO show, and then it's called Training with TO. Okay. YouTube is on, Twitch it's on. So like we're doing all the official airing Saturday.
Awesome. So by the time this comes out, it'll already be out just a couple days. Okay. Dope, man. Again, another great episode of Cutoffs and Coffee. This has been episode 45 for everybody listening who made it this far. We thank you so much. Last thing we're going to ask y'all to do, like we always ask. Number 1, please continue to practice gratitude. Number 2, tell the people you love that you love them. And number 3, live your life stimulated. Thank y'all. We'll catch you on the next one.